Hello, fellow Pops. I'm Dr. F Scott Feil, and I'm bringing you a message from our sponsor at ICE Shaker. My diet's always been a little bit messed up most of my life, and I recently started trying to take back control of my health. And one of the issues my doctor pointed out was that I needed to make an increase in my protein intake. Now, I can't eat chicken breasts all day, every day, so protein shakes and powders have become a big help. Ice Shaker and its built-in removable agitator is an amazing product. They come in a bunch of sizes and colors, and you can even get inscriptions and logos on them. They're stainless steel, double wall insulated, and hold ice for 30 plus hours. If you're interested in purchasing one, you can click on the link in our show notes. Or if you're interested in selling them for your business and making commission, and let's be honest, if you're listening to the Professors of Profit vlogcast and you can consider yourself a pop or a professor of profit, you're likely interested in selling these as a side hustle. You can click on that link in the show notes as well. Or you can reach out to me directly on social media. I'm pretty available there. I love Ice Shaker, and I'm betting you, your patients, and your clients will too. Ice Shaker, let's shake things up. Now let's start the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Professors of Profit vlogcast. I'm your host, Dr. F Scott Feil, and I have with me a very special guest, longtime friend, Dr. Jeff Moore. I was just talking with Jeff before we hit play here, but basically, it's hard to pigeonhole him into one part-time or full-time job. They all just kind of run into each other. He's one of the few guys that I think could have 3 or 4 full-time jobs and actually manage it. So we're going to talk a little bit today about one of his full-time / part-time jobs and how it kind of started as a side hustle, but has really grown to a full-time thing at this point. Jeff, tell us a little bit about ICE Physio and your journey there with that.
Yeah, you bet. First of all, thanks a lot for having me on. I appreciate the chance to rap about this stuff. So it started back in 2012. And like you mentioned, it kind of started just as this idea of doing some local courses around Upper Michigan. I mean, that's where I was based at the time, and had the APTA, the state association, reach out for me to do a small lecture, and did that and got a really good response to it, and sure enjoyed it, and thought, boy, I'd love to do a few more of these at some of the clinics around the area. And just made time for it. On the weekends, I was working 50 hours a week in the clinic. So on the weekends, I would drive the old truck, somewhere around Michigan or Wisconsin, and just teach to a handful of folks, and just kept finding that every time I came back from the weekend, I was more and more organized. There was more and more things that I wanted to do. I get done and be like, boy, I'm fired up. And if I could go back and do it again, I would add this, or I'd do it a bit different. And it was really a passion project there at the beginning that I couldn't stop if I wanted to. I really thought it was a cool way to engage with my colleagues and get sharper for Monday morning. And so it just created a lot of energy in my world, and seemed like it was something that was beneficial for the folks that I was teaching in front of. And that's how it started growing as a side hustle. And then a few of my friends I reached out to and added on a few courses, and we kept getting good feedback, and we just kept doing it organically. There's never been like a time that we paused and said, here's what we want ICE Physio to be, or here's what. We never did that. We just, as we bumped into incredible people who had something special to offer and were a good culture fit, we picked them up and added a new course. And that was how the first bunch happened. And that's how the last few have happened. Now we just happen to have a whole catalog.
Yeah, you hit on a really important point there. It was a passion project, right? It started there. And like you said, you couldn't stop it if you wanted to. And I think that's one of the key aspects of any side gig or side hustle, whether you're going to keep it that way or you're going to make it into a full-time thing and kind of grow it. You have to have that passion for it. Otherwise, it could lead to burnout, or even worse, when things get tough, you're just going to cut bail and quit. And that's, I think, the difference really with a successful business or side hustle, is having that passion all along, so that when the times get tough and the going gets tough, you can still plug on because, you love it so much and you're having so much of an impact that you just couldn't stop no matter what,
Yeah, man, for sure. I've tried to make a real habit in my career and personal life of only doing things that give energy back to me, right? Regardless of what their profit or long-term, viability might be. I've never really given that any thought. I've just done the things that I really loved with people that I really loved. And I've been consistent across everything that I built that way. And that's how I'm going to continue to behave. And I tend to get questions like, what's the forecast or what's the business plan? We still don't have a business plan. The only business plan we have is to keep being passionate and doing what we love. And we kind of assume that's going to have some level of return that's going to be acceptable.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. I think you've heard that quote, you are, the sum of the 5 people that you surround yourself the most with, right? And so I've always been a big fan of surrounding myself with epic people doing epic things, because just good things come from that. So I think that that's a great way to kind of to lead. And I think, realistically, like you said, the business plan isn't that important. I think people worry a little bit too much about that, especially when starting a side hustle or a side gig. Well, I don't have a business plan. And I didn't either. I took a huge piece of paper from my daughter's art easel and I slammed it up on the wall and I said, I want this, I want this, and I want this. And, my businesses have kind of stuck to those 3 ideas that I've had ever since. And, like you were saying earlier, they all kind of feed into each other, right? My big umbrella, the overarching umbrella is education, right? And it's healthcare education. And we're trying to improve that. And we're trying to, make that better little by little. But then I have online education, right? I have my 9 to 5, which is full-time education, right? And I mean, realistically, it all just feeds into itself and it all, gains momentum that way. So, I think that's a pretty neat way to approach any business. If you just keep layering it and leveling it and getting more complex and adding pieces to it that all support each other, that rising tide raises all ships kind of thing. It's like, hey, if we all just keep doing cool stuff like this, it'll just keep getting better and better and better.
Yeah, I think if you can, along the way, you can be a little bit strategic about, I'm not going to take on something new unless it feeds something else I'm doing. That'll really behoove. I see a lot of folks take on unrelated projects. That's a really heavy lift, right? Because when you're spending time in one space, it's doing nothing for the other space. Yeah. And this becomes very hard to make your efforts cumulative. When I kind of zoom out and I look at my world, I'm full-time faculty at South College, where we're training DPT students. And then we have ICE, which is, taking folks from DPT education and training them. And then we have Onward, that's taking folks kind of from ICE and putting them in a private practice. But not only are all of those kind of streamlined, like people could ebb and flow through those, when I'm working in one of them, it makes me better at the other one. Because when I'm training Onward clinicians, I'm realizing what needs to be different about DPT education and foundation. So it feeds back to, I can make this better. Like everything you're doing is sharpening up your other hats. And that can really create an effortless kind of flow to your career. And I would encourage people to think about how can you line things up in that way.
Yeah, that's such a good point. You take bits and pieces and you learn from each phase, and then you go back and you fine tune some of the other phases. And then again, hopefully later on that, feeds that final phase again. It just keeps, working in. Let's talk a little bit about ICE Physio and what kind of offerings do you guys have now? How much have you grown over the last couple of years? Because I know when we first talked for the HET podcast, you guys had your offerings and stuff, but now, man, it's massive.
Yeah. From a growth perspective, it's certainly blown my mind beyond anything I would have thought was reasonable. I remember when Alan told me a few weeks ago, hey, dude, we have 10 courses next weekend. I was like, at the same time, like that's really hard for me to fathom, let alone all the online things that are going on. But we have, I'm honestly not sure as far as the amount of courses and amount of faculty. We probably have 40 or so faculty in a really good suite of, 15 to 20 courses that are basically organized into divisions. So the idea is, fitness forward being the real tip of the spear, but, fitness forward, manual therapy skilled and psychologically informed. We think the world of physical therapy has tried to silo itself into being pain science or being really good at manual therapy or being really, really super into fitness. And we think that it's the blend of those 3 things for any individual patient that creates a real weapon in the clinic, like someone who's really a samurai in being able to go in there and pull from these different spaces. So that's the idea. And if you look at our divisions, they're kind of organized that way. So we have like the spine division, which has lumbar and cervical, and then a full weekend on total spine thrust to really get your manual therapy skills dialed in. Then we have a ton of fitness forward content, the clinical management of the fitness athlete. We have a version of that for older adults and for pregnancy and postpartum. We have a whole area looking at persistent pain and kind of the psychological information that should go to understanding the pain experience across all those divisions. And all of these have certifications, right? So we have like our endurance athlete certification, our fitness athlete certification, our older adult certification, and then we have our comprehensive ICE certification that kind of blends all these courses together. So really the idea is if people get out of school and they're like, I know I want to be fitness forward, but I want all these tools, we encourage them to get into the ICE certification curriculum. And it has kind of an organized way you knock out these live and online courses. And then we have a live exam. Like, we don't believe that you can give a certification, a comprehensive cert away without a live exam. So you're right there in front of us doing patient exams, doing manipulations, coaching fitness barbell movements. Like, it's very much us seeing that you get what you learned and you can implement it into practice. So all of those things are kind of built under the comprehensive umbrella.
Yeah, that's such a good roadmap and a good, model to kind of to work off of. And I think realistically, physical therapy has had those issues with silos, even going back to PT school, right? I mean, we have that dichotomy between, the ivory tower of academia and then the clinical work and the clinical instruction. And there's that chasm between the two. And it's like, why aren't we working together more to educate both ways, right? From academia and from clinical, and overlap, and we could really do some good work there, I think. So it's a great way to try to bridge that gap. So I appreciate that for sure. Tell us a little bit about now the next phase. You're looking at Onward here. What does that look like then from a growth standpoint, and from where that started to non-existent to now it's a big thing?
Yeah. I mean, it looks a whole lot like ICE looks, because the idea where that started was we were training so many people in the ICE methodology and philosophy. They would get stoked, but then they go back to their clinics. They would call me or text me and say, I could not be more on fire about physical therapy from the ICE training, but my clinic doesn't support it. We don't have a squat rack. We don't have kettlebells. I can't do the things that you were talking about in the classes. And I'll be honest, it got really draining hearing that all the time. Like, okay, it's almost of no use for us to train you this way if you can't do it. So one day I finally, it was a story between Jordan Berry and I, who was one of our most dedicated students, and he was looking for a clinic home. And I was like, you know what? I think this is the day. I think we just simply have to start our own chain of clinics so that those who want to treat in this methodology have a clinic home to do that. And that was where Onward began. So we launched the first one in Charlotte. Zach Long and Jordan Berry opened that up in Charlotte. And then we just started about 6 months later, people coming out of ICE saying, or people who had already been in ICE saying, that's my dream, is to work with you all and have a space where I can be out of network and treat with a fitness forward philosophy and have this world as every day in my practice methodology. We began creating homes for them. So our goal now is anywhere that someone wants to bring that kind of practice to the public, we want to facilitate that journey. So we're hoping that in most major metropolitan areas, we can have an Onward. I think we have 16 or 17 now, and we add about one every other month or so as kind of our rhythm. We're not rushing it. We don't have any number we're trying to hit. When the right person in the right location line up, we get to work. We put the gears in motion and get it done.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I mean, to see the evolution, like I said, has just been from little side gig teaching some courses on the weekends to now like full-fledged. We've got the, methodology down. We've got the philosophy down. We've got the following of people who believe in it. The 1,000 true fans, if you will, or whatever, right? And now they're, able to now implement it in a great way with a great opportunity, because some of them may not have even been able to do that. They may not have had the opportunity. They may not have had the mentorship. That's another big one, So just having people who have been through it, right, and having clinics that are already set up, and it's, kind of just like, hey, this is how we're doing it, and just follow this roadmap, So I think that really is a great plan moving forward. So I commend you guys, like I said, on the growth. It's been awesome to watch. Tell me a little bit about what's in the future for you. What's in the future for Jeff Moore? Not necessarily ICE or Onward, but it could be. But what do you see over the next 5 to 10 years for you and your plan?
Yeah, it's a great question. I don't think much about that, to be fully transparent. Every day I wake up more excited than yesterday about what we're doing. What we're doing now has gotten the attention of some really neat players, including like Wild Health, Julie Foucher's group, the MDs that are very, very fitness forward and very lifestyle behavior oriented. So I would love now, we had a great meeting last night. We broke Zoom, we maxed out Zoom. Julie Foucher was talking about how we can use Wild Health. So I see a world where now we can finish the drill, right? We can take all these physical therapy clinics and all the patients we serve, and we can connect them with fitness for primary care docs who serve all 50 states via telehealth, and now finally our patients are getting the same reinforcing words from their physicians. We've been swimming upstream for so many years with docs pushing, and not all of them, the story, but a lot of them, a common narrative is over imaging, over prescribing, over surgerizing. And now we have physicians saying, no, it should be lifestyle first. And then them coming to us and saying, yes, it should be lifestyle first, and the patient hearing the same message. So some of those relationships there, and then with groups like Mayhem for programming and getting people in a kind of a virtual fitness world, like now I kind of see my job evolving to getting the right partnerships in place so that our patients have a comprehensive healthcare ecosystem that has the same reinforcing fitness forward message across their rehab provider, their physician, their coach, their programming, kind of walling that garden is how I look at it.
Yeah. I mean, we've known the healthcare system has been broken for a long time, right? Even going back to the healthcare education system, which is, what the HET podcast kind of talks about, right? But finally getting to see that slow turn of the ship, and that, it didn't happen overnight, So again, kudos to you guys for finally sticking it out and showing that it can be done and it can be done right. Now we just need to figure out the payment system. We gotta figure that out next. So
yeah, I mean, the good news is, like, and I did a podcast on this a while ago, as far as really breaking that down. Like, if you leverage technology and you leverage strength of size with all the clinic groups, whether it's Onward or Rehab or ICE Trained or Wild Health, you can get this down pretty reasonable. I mean, you can get a baseline program through Wild Health where you get primary care annual visit, you get health coaching quarterly, you get full genomics, the whole 9 yards. Go to your physio every other month for an hour-long session and get daily programming through Mayhem for $200 a month. That's a pretty palatable number. Like, we can get this down to where people can say, I think I want to live in that world, and then maybe get a really high deductible plan for emergency stuff on the side and wind up at $500 a month and have pretty comprehensive services that are lifestyle oriented.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds better than a lot of what's out there now. So, yeah. I mean, shoot, I worked at a job where the monthly premium for a family of 4 started out at $1,800 a month, went up to $2,000 a month, and finally tapped out at $2,200 a month. And I was like, I'm losing money working for you every year because I'm not getting a raise. My premium's going up and the deductible's going up with it, which isn't going to work for me. So I'm out.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's insane. And again, I don't even want to get into the rabbit hole of, people not meeting their deductibles anyway. Why do we even have health insurance, right? If we're never going to use it and meet deductibles. So I don't even want to get my blood pressure up on that one for today.
Yeah.
So,
and I agree with that. I don't want to get my blood pressure up. Like, I think there's a real tendency of folks to focus on that side. Like, we know what that side looks like, and let's create solutions. Like, we get it. The healthcare system is self-destructing. Okay, fair enough. Let's make sure in our communities and our ecosystems that we have people that feel well flanked by really supportive health-facing services. Let's create that and spend our time doing that.
And I think you hit the nail on the head, Jeff. This is a real good closing point, I think, right? Entrepreneurs just figure stuff out. They just do. They figure out solutions. I was fortunate enough to take the ICE course with Mike Eisenhart, right? The APHPT course. And it's, again, a solution, right? It's a way to present and pitch your stuff that works to communities, to companies, to populations, whatever you're going to use it for, right? But again, it's solution oriented. It's entrepreneurs, especially in the healthcare field, finding ways to just make it work and get it done.
Yeah. And I think so many people are always trying to argue, this is the best way. I say we drop all that and just create options, right? Create options. And then patients can look, and at least now they can say, look, I prioritize this. I'm going to go over here. We don't have to burn the ships. We just have to, like you said, solve a problem one by one. And all of us doing that, our consumers are going to be in a much better spot than they are right now.
Absolutely. Well, Jeff, I can't thank you enough, man, for taking the time and to come on and talk a little bit about, all things CEU side hustle into now full-time hustle and several other branches now. Where can people reach out to you and find you and follow you if they want to see what's going on with you guys and where they can kind of get more information about this stuff?
Yeah, for sure. So probably the easiest spot is just to go to ice.physio. That's where our website lives, or ptonice.com. Either of those will get you there. And that has all the things. I mean, you can follow all of our social media through there. You can follow our podcast through there. Look at all of our courses, certifications. You can see our whole world from there. You can always reach out to me either personally at jeffmooredpt@gmail.com. The same as my handle, jeffmooredpt on Instagram. Feel free to message me there. Never an issue. I'll receive all the ICE ones as well. So we're readily accessible across all those channels.
Awesome, man. We'll put all those in the show notes so people can get up with you easily. Always a pleasure, Jeff. I appreciate everything you're doing, and it's always nice talking with you and catching up.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for having me. Fun to watch your show take off and great to be a part of it.
Thank you.